Primal Fear. It's one of Ark's hardest mods, full of many different tiers of dinos, from alpha to pure chaos. I have 100 days to tame as many of these tiers as I can, as well as defeat as many of the tiers of bosses as I can. Join me through the pain that is Ark Primal Fear. As usual, we spawn on day 1, and just like the last one, I've never played this mod, so I scratch my wrist to prepare myself both mentally and physically, and realize I spawned in the wrong goddamn area. So I remove myself from this mortal plane. So after respawning in the Crystal Zone, which is where I intended to spawn in the first place, I turned around and immediately see an absolutely massive degenerate, and proceed to hightail it out of there. So after fighting Professor Oak to the death, I ran right into a red-furred asshole from earlier. I got deleted. Fun times. After being traumatized, I respawned and gathered some Infinity Stones, gave Professor Oak the old 1-2 again.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Craft a pickaxe, get some stone from a nearby rock. Yeah, you thought I was going to say obliterate the rock, didn't you? Well, not this time, dummy. And while I was running away from an undead birdman, his alpha tier buddy decided to jump scare me.
Get your fat ass back here.
I gathered some crystal from one of the many nodes nearby, murdered a tiny birdman, skinned him for his hide, and kept a very close eye on the giant parrot circling around. I crafted myself a hatchet, crafted a foundation, and just tucked it under the side of this cliff. I also crafted an awesome spyglass so I could put a name to the godlike heathens I'm going to come across. I made a drug lab, mortar and pestle, and then I noticed this absolute degenerate, and figured I should probably move before that thing gets any closer and destroys everything. And running around trying to find a new base spot, I stumbled across a red friend from earlier. I got deleted. Again. And after getting my stuff back, this degenerate thought he could get another free meal, but I eventually lost him by jumping into the water. Looking at him over there, acting like nothing just happened. Anyway, I did find a little corner to set up, and eventually crafted a couple wooden foundations to better fortify my temporary home. And after a little while, I finally had my little shacks completely built, so I would be safe from the horrors on the outside. I then upgraded my storage capacity, split all of the raw lice from my inventory for narcotics, deleted another tiny birdman, and finally had enough hide to craft a forge. I then gathered some metal from some river rocks. I returned home and smelted the metal so I could make myself a smithy and some metal tools. And I got some narco berries and turned them into night-night juice, crafted myself a hatchet, upgraded my wood gathering abilities, and then crafted a crossbow so I could cosplay it. And I was like, no, not really, calm down. I then saw there were stronger narcotics I could craft, so naturally I crafted a few. Also crafted some arrows, and of course laced them with the finest NyQuil I could get my hands on, got myself a bola, and while out looking for my first aim, I saw a dodo who thought it was still 1942. I then bolaed this level 95 parasaur, read him some bedtime stories, and then knocked out this toxic dodo thinking I could tame it, even though it literally says right here that it needs toxic kibble. Yeah, I can be an idiot sometimes. So I put the dodo out of its misery and then turned around to see my parasaur had tamed. So I got some crystal, crafted a couple soul traps, KO'd this dodo with a mean right hook, and decimated this copy and his two friends.
No witnesses?
Tamed up the dodo as well as her boyfriend, put the parasaur in a pokeball, and returned home. I then crafted a parasaur saddle, murdered a toxic birdman, slapped the saddle on our parasaur, and of course gave him an anime girl costume, and became a humble farmer. I made up some more NyQuil with the berries and then absolutely obliterate Dwayne The Rock Johnson for a fourth time. There. Happy. And then returned home and threw the metal in the forge to smelt. I laced some more arrows with melatonin and crafted a few more bolas. I decimated the local trilobot population and then spotted a smoking birdman, and well, this happened. Good times. Once I got my stuff back, I spotted this level 130 PT. And once he finally landed, I bullied him, cured his insomnia, and after a bit of a wait, he was tamed. I named him Terrence. And returning to my humble abode, I crafted a primal smithy where you craft almost everything in this mod. I also wanted to tame this low-level female PT, but this elder fjordhawk decided it wanted lunch instead, so it killed the PT. I took the meat, and guess what? I ran. And once I got back home, I crafted a PT saddle, saddled up Terrence, and physically assaulted the local wildlife for hide, and I was about to head home and notice this.
Nice.
I found Terrence a girlfriend, so I bullied her, read her a bedtime story, shoved some cuts of dodo down her trachea. She ate the whole thing in one bite. I named her Terry. Arriving back at base, I crafted a bed just in case of any mishaps, and when I logged back in the next day, I ended up stuck in the floor. This game used to be $60, by the way. I then had to pick up the floor, which ultimately destroyed my primal smithy I just made. Good times. On that note, I decided I would find a new base spot, so I set out on Terrans to do just that. Along the way, I saw this thing, and wanting absolutely nothing to do with it, so I kept on going. And just as I went over the side of a cliff, there were explosions. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of explosions. Then up underneath one of the floating islands, there's this little cave in which I would call home, also very temporarily. So I got set up with my foundation and bed, threw out Perry, and made him hold all of my belongings while I worked stuff out. After getting some materials, I saw this. What is a health pool, man? Tanky Aztec was aside. I crafted a large storage box, and I was going to tame this iguanodon, but the sheer amount of nope on this island told me not to. So I went for this one instead. Once she was unconscious, I shoved some purple berries into her esophagus. A couple minutes later, she was tamed. I named her Juanita. I needed her because iguanodons can turn berries into seeds, which I need narcoberry and tintoberry seeds to make the potent narcotics. I then made up some potent trank arrows, and I went to tame an RG, and well, yeah, that was a waste of arrows. I then harvested some silica pearls from a nearby river and invaded a beaver's home for the cementing paste, went home and crafted a gravestone so I could recover my items upon death. Afterwards, I made the long trip back to my old base to get my stuff, and once I got back, I placed down some more foundations and placed down my smithy, forge, and mortar and pestle, crafted a bunch of potent narcotics, and set to knock out this level 140 RG. Eventually, he did fall asleep, and I gave him some Equus Ribeye, which he liked so much we became friends. I named him Hawk Hogan. I then KO'd this level 140 Anki to increase my metal farming capabilities, and Sir Ankleton was back on the squad. Back home, I crafted a new Primal Smithy and set the Dodos to breed so I can make my first toxic kibble towards my first Primal Fear tame. And nearing the end of day 10, I spotted this otter, which I offered him a fish, and we became friends. Welcome to the team, Mr. Otterton. I then crafted an Anki and an RG saddle. I saddled up both of them and picked up the Anki with the RG and flew down below where there was a few metal nodes to harvest. Threw the metal in the forge, threw in some wood, and lit the fire. Crafted myself a much needed flak armor set, as well as some crop plots for the veggies I need for the various kibbles. An intake, vertical, and irrigation pipes, placed all those down to upgrade my Farmville account, and while out exploring I saw Spino summon meteorites from the heavens. That's a whole lot of nope. Afterwards I saw this very large otter, so I tamed it, and then realized I could ride this elder otter. This thing is absolutely amazing. Back at base I named her Luna. I crafted myself a fabricator as well as a few stone foundations, crafted some electronics for a generator, threw in some fuel, and fired her up. And then I crafted some more foundations because I wanted to move next to the crops as I figured this island was safe enough. So I picked everything up and built a nice little platform, and this spot would end up being my permanent home, believe it or not, and obviously I will enclose it eventually. And then I did have some narcotics and other things crafting during this process, so afterwards I did end up finally making my first toxic kibble, as well as some more potent narcotics. And I did see this toxic parasaur nearby, so I read him some very good bedtime stories, fed him the most toxic kibbles, and now we were friends. I then found this level 145 Doedicurus bush camping, so I knocked her out and made her join the army. I gave her the perfect name. They see me rolling. Once I got home, I gave her a saddle and put her to work. Crafting Nesplex crafting station, here's a montage of me building a box.
Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, oh you matter what, add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, oh you matter what.
And there you have it, boxed in. Afterwards, I made another piece of toxic kibble, and I KO'd this low-level female toxic Perry, fed her the kibble, and once she was tamed, I named her Amber.
My dog stepped on a bee. We went to the vet.
And while I was out exploring on the RG looking for more tames, this happened. Yeah, Hawk Hogan just got deleted by a giant monkey. I was so distraught I gave this Crowmeda 10,000 cc's of melatonin and made him a slave for fertilizer. I then placed down a couple more crop plots for the other veggies I need, and then proceeded to build a greenhouse around them.
Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, oh you matter what, add it up, bankroll, euro.
Just like that. Made some more toxic kibble and tamed a toxic dodo, made some alpha flak pants from the remains of a dead dilo, tamed a mate for the toxic dodo, and finally got a toxic egg from Amber. I'm surprised she didn't lay that on my pillow. Anyway, I used that egg to make my first piece of alpha kibble, and then I flew over to the crystal biome to get some rare flowers for the toxic narcotics, which are twice as strong as the potents. And while I was over here, I figured I might as well take this crystal wyvern I had seen earlier. So I put some crystal on my hotbar, and let's just say this wyvern was definitely, special.
Robert, help.
And after it decided to be smart again, I jumped on its back and gave it the first piece of crystal. Now, while I'm taming this, it's a good time to talk to you guys. Now, I noticed about 90% of you guys watching this are not subscribed, and you're already this far in, so why not? It's free. Anyway, after a bit, she was finally tamed, and I eventually got her back to base, and I made another piece of alpha kibble. I hatched some of Amber's children.
Disgusting!
Crafted a rifle with a very long neck, as well as some gunpowder, turned that into ammo, threw out some toxic children to later be sacrificed, placed down an oil pump I found in a supply drop, harvested some of the small nodes around, stole from a beaver, sacrificed a toxic Perry, harvested his entrails, finally made some toxic narcotics, turned my rifle ammo into empty dart casings, and made some toxic darts. And set to trank out this alpha RG, and while I was tranking it, I heard this. And that sound came from this asshole. So you know what I did? I ran. I then managed to get back on my wyvern and kite that man off a cliff.
Stupid.
And I was then able to go back and finish what I started. I fed the RG a single piece of the alpha kibble, and it ate the whole thing in one bite. Afterwards, I went after this level 150 of the opposite gender, and just like that, he was tamed. I also wanted to KO this high-level alpha Anki, and well, he decided to go cliff jumping.
Bye, have a great time.
So I scooped him up before he sank to the bottom of the ocean, gave him some very high-strength NyQuil, and after a few minutes, he was tamed. Back at base, I named the male RG Stephen Hawking, and the female, well, I'm sure you know. Got an egg from the two, and murdered a giant crab for some organic polymer so I can make an air conditioner. So I threw out the eggs and hatched them, and I needed as many females as I could to get to produce the unfertilized eggs needed for the next year of kibble. I then found this red drop with a Goliath chainsaw, so I had to take it. Back home, I named the new female RG Alpha KFC. I then knocked out this Oviraptor I found near the base, and while it was taming, I slaughtered some freshly grown toxic Perries. I tamed this guy because it does reduce mating times, as well as reduces the time it takes for dinos to passively lay eggs. Now pause. You may be wondering why my armor is red. Well, after taming the last Alpha RG, I forgot to unpause my recording, and I had killed a low-level Alpha RG as well and used that hide to make this. I then stopped by my oil pump and collected what I had pumped out. Afterwards, crafted an Alpha Anki saddle, got into a dogfight with an Apex RG, which I came out victorious. And I gotta say that the loot was pretty damn good. Anyway, I went on a metal run with the Alpha Anki, and this thing was overpowered for metal harvesting. I then went and knocked out this Alpha Theory, tamed it to help with my wood harvesting. Then hatched a few more Alpha RGs because I needed more Alpha hide. That being said, I went around killing various Alpha dinos for their hide, and returning back home, I had finally gotten the second Alpha egg I needed to make elemental kibble. And I was going to use it to tame this fire feather light, but the sheer amount of degenerates nearby told me otherwise. So I decided instead to fly to the crystal biome and use the theory to get a bunch of rare flowers for more toxic narcotics. Also taking down some various apexes for loot and hide, and making my way back towards the crystal biome. I saw this Omega Spino and it only had 33k health, so I figured the theory could take it, and well, here's what happened. Well, technically the theory did kill it, but it lost its own life at the same time. Rest in peace. So, hanging my head, I went back home, where I got some rare mushrooms from the nearby trees, and then realized that metal farming wasn't the only thing the Alpha Enki was OP at. I crafted a bunch of toxic narcotics, infused some with Alpha blood and some with Apex blood to make them stronger, and then made a bunch of more gunpowder, as well as went over to the snow to grab some obsidian for a Primal Forge, which is much faster for smelting metal. And once I got home, I crafted the forge and placed it down next to the generator in place of the AC. I split the metal I had with the other forge and ran over and lit the fire. Yeah, this thing is game changing. I then flew over to the volcano and harvested a bunch of charcoal from the burnt trees, which I loaded into my mortar and pestle and crafted into gunpowder, which I then turned into empty rifle casings, which then turned into Apex strength darts. I crafted my first piece of elemental kibble and set out to tame my first elemental. I wanted to tame this dark featherlight, but it needed advanced elemental kibble, so that wasn't happening. So I found this ice featherlight in the desert, which makes complete sense. So I knocked it out, but not before it started to fight back. Yeah, I got frozen solid. But after some very convincing bedtime stories, she finally decided to take a nap. I gave her some kibble and she swallowed the whole thing without chewing. And then I was about to scan for a male, but KFC's life flashed before her eyes.
Robert, there's an issue.
I eventually found this low level and tamed him up. Back home I tested out the high level and she did pretty good damage. So I enabled mating so they could do their business. Anyway, I picked up the egg from the two lovebirds and hatched it up, and I don't know how that fit in that tiny egg, but I'm not going to ask questions. I named the child Elsa. I then went to KO this alpha mammoth for better wood gathering, and while it was napping got into a fight with this fabled RG.
Holy Jesus.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Yeah, that was with only a few levels. So I took down the fabled birdman and the loot was crazy. And then the mammoth had finally tamed. Back home, I gave Elsa one of the experience potions and dumped all the levels into melee and movement speed. She was so happy she laid an egg. And she was extremely fast, so getting around the map will not be a problem. I then crafted our new mammoth a saddle and took deforestation to a whole new level. I got another couple eggs from the featherlights and then decided my base was getting way too crowded, so I made some foundations and started expanding. Once I was done, I needed to craft a chem bench, so I started up some electronics. But I needed more, so I decided to take on a Primal Tech Raptor. That almost ended very badly, very quickly. And a little seizure warning while I harvest this man's robotic entrails. And no, I did not see the craftable version that dropped. When I returned, Elsa had laid 3 whole eggs.
Eggs.
I then set the chem bench in the crafting cube, placed it next to the fabricator, queued some spark powder and narcotics, and made a soul terminal as well as a preserving bin because I needed to make jerky for the next year of kibble. On the way to my oil pump, I decimated a fabled rhino, I collected the oil, murdered a fabled Anki for the loot, and then flew into the bee cave for polymer, but not before committing bee genocide. With the bee population depleted, I was able to use my chainsaw to harvest the hives. Of course, I had to be a loot goblin on the way home. I gathered some more obsidian. I was going to raid some beavers over here, but nope. I eventually did find a damn dam in a safe distance away, so I took the cementing paste and despawned it, and my featherlight was doing magic tricks.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Anyway, I saw a couple more beaver dams on the way home, so of course I robbed them blind. And when I got back home, I crafted the Primal Industrial Forge. Now we're really cooking.
Someone cooked here.
And I then crafted an industrial grill as well as an industrial cooker. I placed a cooker down outside on some pipes and then murdered a freshly grown alpha RG for the prime meat and put some of the cooked prime meat into the preserving bin to craft jerky. And then looking at the recipe for Apex kibble, I realized I needed regular jerky, not prime jerky. So I put some raw meat on the grill. Afterwards, I decided I want to make a long neck rifle from this BP I got from killing something. But first, I needed more metal. And with almost 30k metal acquired, I went back home, and returning to base, I had enough metal to craft the Ascendant long neck, and for my first Apex tame, I wanted to tame an Apex Theory because of some unfortunate events. And after quite a wait, I finally got a piece of jerky and crafted my first piece of Apex kibble. So I hopped on Elsa and set out towards the Apex Therizinosaur, which I eventually found, and this long neck was way overpowered. So with a couple drive-by shots, he was out. I had to get rid of some buggy boys first, but I fed him the kibble and we became best friends. Back in my humble abode, I got him a saddle and tested him out on the last fish in my little pond. Not bad. I was going to take him for a longer test ride, but this degenerate had other plans. But so did I. I gave the Theory a couple XP potions and leveled them up, and well, bro got deleted. Then made another piece of Apex kibble and set out to tame an Apex Carno. Once I found her, she really enjoyed my bedtime stories, and I fed her the kibble while she was napping. And when she woke up, she said we could be friends. And back home, I was looking at the recipes for the next kibbles, and it looks like I'll need elemental feathers, which I assume the parrots give you, so I did some population control. Back home, I crafted some advanced sniper bullets because I can turn those into super melatonin bullets. But I would also need one of these primal snipers, so I reduced the bee population. Wait, reduced? Is that even a word? Anyway, I harvested the hives for the poly and then invaded a few beavers' homes. Also killed this celestial thylid because all I could do was stand there. And I got this much cheaper primal sniper blueprint from it. I then proceeded to rob a few more beavers. And back at base, I was able to craft the sniper blueprint I had just gotten. So to craft the trank bullets, I started some gunpowder and turned the old bullets into primal bullets, made some potent narcotics which turned into toxic narcotics, which then fused with Apex blood turns into Apex narcotics. And then finally, I was able to make the Apex primal trank bullets, also a piece of special kibble. I wanted to use this special kibble on this buffoon Ferox, which literally shoots explosives everywhere. So I got a few shots in before he realized what was happening, and bro decided to eat himself off a cliff.
Ooh, that brother's floating in the air.
Anyway, in the middle of our battle, bro started to shoot rockets at me like he's Megatron. I eventually did get him to torpor run, but he just decided to attempt suicide again. He ended up on this little island, and a couple more shots and he was out. Welcome to the team, buddy. I took him up to one of the islands above to test him out, and if this isn't one of the most American things I've ever seen, I don't know what is. I named him Beast Boy. I then made a couple more pieces of Apex kibble and then set out on Elsa to tame some Apex RGs for eggs. And the first one I saw got deleted from existence, but the next one I was able to KO and tame. And same with this female. I got an egg from the two and hatched it, and now begins the process of collecting eggs. Eventually, while waiting for the others to finish raising, the female had laid an egg and I had already had one from earlier, so I was able to make a piece of advanced elemental kibble. So I went for this dark featherlight. A couple seconds later, it was tamed. And I tested it out, and honestly, I like the ice featherlight more. Anywho, I proceeded to craft an Omega kibble thanks to the Carno for laying an egg, and then I gave this Omega Spino the best NyQuil I could find, fed him the kibble, and after just a couple minutes, it was tamed. Back home, I threw it out, and this thing was absolutely massive.
That's what she said!
I then killed this Omega Rex for the blood and hide, and then crafted an Omega Spinal saddle with the Omega hide. And damage-wise, it was okay, but it definitely wasn't Elsa. And finally, I was able to craft a piece of Fable Kibble, which I need those eggs to get Celestial Kibble, so I headed towards a Fabled Argentavis, and it just seems like the birds in this game lay a lot more eggs. Once I arrived, I just unloaded Tranks, and she went out pretty quick. I fed her the kibble, and she was tamed. So now at this point, I'm thinking this mod is actually not that bad, but boy was I wrong. Back home, I collected some more alpha eggs, crafted another Fable Kibble, went and knocked out this male Fable Argy, tamed it, and then killed this wandering loot boss and checked out what I got. I then returned home and threw out the male next to his now wife, and of course I got an egg and then hatched it, and it was a female, which was perfect. And I needed primal blood for the next tier of kibble, so I went for this primal raptor, and let me just say, that was a mistake. I launched the first attack and turned around and went for another. Yeah, this is gonna take a while, so I'm just gonna speed it up for you. I don't know why I ended up going for this on the Featherlight, but it was honestly the best shot I had, just attacking it from the air. Okay, and by this time it was under half health, and it has already taken me 20 minutes to get to that point. But now it was almost dead, and this other Primal Raptor decided to try to join in, but eventually lost aggro, and I was finally able to finish this one off. Yeah, this fight probably took me 45 minutes. And when I said it was a mistake, I didn't mean because I lost, I meant because the time it took to kill. There you have it. Primal blood acquired and a nice prefab sniper. Anywho, back home, I hatched some more Fabled Argies, waited for them to grow, and I collected some more eggs and finally crafted a Celestial Kibble. And I thought about taming this Rex, but 1.7 million torpor, I don't think I had enough bullets. So I went for this Celestial Spino instead. Still wasn't sure if I had the bullets, but I was going to try, and with just a few rounds left, she finally went out. I fed it the kibble, and just like that, I had my strongest tame yet. Back home, I threw it out and just admired it. This thing was absolutely awesome. I then crafted a vault to store my loot instead of a storage box, and I needed Celestial Hide for the saddle, so I attacked this RG, which almost resulted in Elsa's death.
Oh no!
But eventually we did take it down. It fell in the water, so I had to use Elsa instead of my chainsaw, but that was plenty of hide. And on the way to get cementing paste for the saddle, I killed another loot boss, grabbed the paste, and headed out. Finally crafting the saddle, I jumped on the back of the Spino and tested him out on the wildlife, and yeah, that's with no levels. And while out killing apexes for their blood, there was a very angry Ferox nearby. I also needed some more toxic blood, so I threw out the toxic parries to sacrifice their children, and while waiting, I collected some more fabled eggs and turned them into another Celestial Kibble, queued up some more gunpowder, slaughtered some unwanted children, and made some more toxic narcotics, and of course fused them with apex blood and made a lot more apex train bullets. I then knocked out and tamed the Celestial Spino, got back, threw him out to breed, and lo and behold, you can't breed them. I collected an Omega egg and turned it into demonic kibble. I decided to go for this demonic parasaur, but I had to send this man packing first. I didn't need to do anything because the parasaur actually killed him. Nice. So I shot the parasaur a few times and bro went parasailing off the cliff. Get it? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyway, I got her knocked out in the water, gave her the kibble, and she tamed just fine. I gave her and the Spino EXP potions and leveled them up. Afterwards, I crafted some fabled health potions, fed one to the Spino and the Parasaur, and within seconds, both of them were healed. And I wanted to take on the demonic Pithecus, but this happened. Yeah, I got deleted just by being near it. So after I respawned and got my stuff back, I got the Spino in her Pokeball and just kited that man off.
Bye, bitch!
I then knocked him out and then murdered him as payback and did the same to his brother. And I was then able to craft the Parasaur saddle, so I tested him out and he wasn't too bad. I then wanted to get some more Primal Blood as well as test out the new Demonic and Celestial Dinos. So I put the Demonic Parasaur in a Pokeball, jumped on Elsa, and headed towards another Primal Raptor. Once I arrived, I had to take out a Karcha that was guarding it. I threw out the Spino and the Parasaur, put Elsa back in her Pokeball to keep her safe, and it was go time. Yeah, this man got absolutely deleted because of the Spino's knockback, and Demon Perry over there was just no help at all.
Don't flip!
Anyway, after about 45 seconds of beating the hell out of the raptor, it finally died, so I harvested its organs, went back home, I grabbed a couple more fabled eggs so I could make more kibble, and then set out again to take down a Primal Tech Rex. And looking at this situation here, you would think I would have turned around and went home, right? Wrong. I completely thought I could take down all three of them, so I threw out the Parasaur and Spino, and you'll notice I did not put Elsa back in a Pokeball. Big mistake. And the fight ensued, and the Rex was definitely going down, but what happened after, I don't want to talk about. I went to check the loot, and yeah. That was a pretty big setback. And those of you that don't know, that Mongo may not have the biggest health pool, but they are extremely strong. Hence why my Spino died in seconds. But I respawned, and honestly, I didn't know what to do but to go try and get the Parasaur back. So I hopped on another Featherlight, and once I arrived, I had no idea where the Mongo went. But it was nowhere near here, thankfully. And this is when I discovered the craftable drop you get from the Primal Tech Dinos. Anyway, I put Perry back in a Pokeball and flew back home, got another Featherlight egg. Rest in peace, Elsa. You will be missed. I crafted a Primal Tech bench, and this Rex was quite expensive. Didn't quite have the resources, so I imprinted the new Featherlight. And once it was raised, I set out to find a new Celestial, and I settled for this level 140 Rex. He started torpor running and did some sick 360 no-scopes. And eventually she learned how to appreciate my bedtime stories. Now I had to go back to base to get the kibble, and right on cue the Omega Spinal laid an egg, grabbed the Celestial kibble, and I ended up making a piece of demonic kibble as well. So on the way back to the Rex, I KO'd this demonic monkey in the water and tamed it. Returning to the Rex, I shoved the kibble down its trachea, and she was tamed. On the way back, I harvested some oil nodes, and back home, I crafted some of the lubricant needed for the Tech Rex, and I needed sap for the rubber that was required, so I made a tree sap tap as well as tree platform. Arrived in the redwoods and placed down the platform and the sap tap. These take a while to accumulate, so I went home and picked up an egg the Rex had laid. After a while, I went back to the sap tap and had 20 waiting for me, which wasn't nearly enough, so back home I gave the Rex some EXP potions and leveled into health and melee. Then I gave her a health potion. I crafted her a saddle, put her in her Pokeball, and then absolutely deleted this Primal Raptor. That was way too easy. I then harvested some more beehives for Polly, got a bunch more sap, and then I went to grab a little bit more sap and I needed it, and I did this. Yeah, that Featherlight's dead. When I returned, I was going through its bag and almost got deleted again. Anyway, I got the sap and finally crafted a Tech Rex. Assembled it outside, and the stats were pretty good. Yeah, no levels and 79k damage. I like it. Now, unfortunately, the health doesn't go up much when you level it, but the melee does. I then crafted a bunch more Primal Trank bullets because I wanted to tame one more Celestial before taking on the Origin bosses, which are the first tier. So I also crafted a Celestial Kibble and tracked down a Celestial Dire Bear. And it took me a little bit, but it was finally out, and a few minutes later, she was tamed. Back at my humble abode, I hatched another Featherlight egg.
It's just a baby.
And then watched as my Rex obliterated a Celestial Argy. I then collected the artifact of the pack from the Dragon Cave and concealed it in Mr. Otter's pocket, and grabbed another for myself to carry. And now it was time to start the bosses. So I crafted the Origin Raptor consumable and then threw out everyone who was capable onto the island below the base. I summoned the Raptor and bolted back to my tames. I whistled follow and set to attack. That was actually easy besides the Spino, but that guy was useless. And the loot was pretty damn good too. So feeling confident, I crafted the Origin Kairuku Summoner as well, and then did the exact same thing I did with the Raptor. And I'm not gonna lie, this fight didn't last long at all. However, I did lose the Tech Rex because he just went in and tried to solo, which is unfortunate because of how expensive it was, but it is what it is. And just like that, the penguin was dead. And I needed some more primal blood for the next tier dino, so I deleted this primal carno. Well, the monkey did. And back home, I crafted the Chaos Orb and set out after the Chaos Rex, which would be my final tame before taking on the remainder of the Origin bosses. And there he was, as menacing as ever. Popped the first few shots into him, and when I say this guy took forever to knock out, I mean it took forever. 5.3 million torpor is no joke. I actually ran out of bullets and had to go make more, but not before deleting a Primal Carno on the way back for its soul.
Fetch me their soul!
You know how to say owned in Russian?
Anyway, I got back home and made some more primal infused narcotics and then turned them into bullets. I made it back to the Rex and just unloaded everything I had to him, and I almost had him knocked out, but I ran out of bullets again, so I resorted to the long neck. And there wasn't much torpor left until he was finally knocked out. It took me about 30 minutes. So I gave him the kibble, and just like that, he was tamed. Back home, I threw him out of his Pokeball and was surprised that he was actually a little bigger than the Celestial. I gave him a max experience potion I got from a Carno, and I leveled him up. I just need a little more primal blood for the saddle, so I absolutely demolished this Primal Spino.
Who are you?
It's your fucking nightmare!
Primal Spino down, Primal Blood collected. Chaos Rex saddle acquired. And this dude was an absolute beast. And I was so ready for the origin bosses. So I grabbed another artifact and then crafted the origin Dire Bear Summoner. And I decided to do the fights in a bit more of an open area underneath the floating islands. I got the team lined up, summoned the bear, and off we go. Three down, 5 to go. So I grabbed another artifact, and now it's time for the Origin Spino. And honestly, I'm just going to combine all the remaining Origin fights into one supercut. So, y'all enjoy. And just like that, all of the Origin bosses have been defeated, which means we are one step closer to the end. And now, when I got back home, I crafted some more bullets because I wanted to tame a spirit dino before I try the next tier boss. So after spending some time waiting for eggs, I finally crafted the spirit orb and made my way towards the spirit Rex. And after spotting it, I definitely had to keep my distance with those things it was dropping. I then managed to kite it out of the woods and off the cliff into the water below. I then started unloading tranks into it. And honestly, I'm just going to save you all the trouble. Yeah, he drowned. I was pretty pissed I wasted all of those bullets, but I didn't let the loot go to waste. And then, not giving up, I set my sights on this decent level Spirit Spino. It has a much bigger oxygen pool. I eventually did get it knocked out, and I had to resort to my long neck at the end because I ran out of bullets, but I fed it the spirit orb and he ate the whole thing in one bite. And when I got back home, I crafted the demonic Reaper Queen summoner, which would be the next boss I fight. So I made it over to my tames, and I summoned the queen, and I tried to run away, but I was not fast enough. Yeah. I perished. And when I flew back, my heart sank. I didn't see any of my tames besides the Parasaur. I checked the Parasaur's inventory and saw nothing. Unsure of what to do. I didn't know where they went. They weren't dead. There was no way. So I hopped back on the Featherlight and flew down, and there I see them floating on top of the water. And the Reaper Queen was on the move near the bottom of the ocean. And unfortunately, her minions were still doing a number on my tames. There wasn't a whole lot they could do about it besides that. I put the tames in their Pokeballs, and now I couldn't find the Spino anymore, but I figured the others could probably take her. Keyword, probably. I then tracked the queen all the way over near the snow, and I threw out my tames, hit her with a dart, and all I could do was watch. Eventually, my bear and my Celestial Rex succumbed to the queen's power. Luckily, my Chaos Rex decided to get the hell out of there.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Leaving the queen to sink to the bottom of the ocean. I eventually got my Rex back in his Pokeball, avoiding the queen's minions, and I can't lie, I had no idea what to do. I was about to give up, and then I remembered I have a subaquatic spirit dino. So I threw out the Spino and headed into the depths to fight this thing head on. Now, I started attacking it, and I realized Ark's terrible AI won't let it attack underwater, so this fight was free. Well, not completely. Rest in peace, you two. Now, every so often, I did have to go up for air, but she was stuck down there, and I wish I could give you guys some epic fight with all the music and transitions, but this was pretty lame, I won't lie. And after about 25 minutes, she was finally down. Yeah, that was interesting. But cool thing is, she did drop a tameable summon, which is... honestly, I thought it just gave me a tamed version, but I was way wrong. Yeah. I ran. She did end up falling to the ocean, but I'll come back for her once I'm ready. I then returned home, feeling exhausted IRL, so I logged off for the day. And logging back on, I checked to see if the Reaper was still there and to see what kibble she needed, and it was just 2 demonic kibble. Perfect. I checked to see if I could craft any, and not quite yet. So I went on a berry run with the Anki, and crafted some narcotics, and set to take down a Primal Spino because I needed Primal Blood for the Primal Narcotics. How many times can you say Primal in one sentence? Once I arrived, I deleted some degenerates, and threw out the Chaos Rex and the Spirit Spino, and then initiated the fight. But my Spino was a little late to the party.
My name is Jeff.
Anyway, once he joined in, when I say the Primal got deleted, I mean his whole existence got sent to the Shadow Realm. Social security number and all. I needed as much Primal Blood as possible, so I went through getting rid of any Primal that were nearby, and then while out killing Karkanos for chitin, I almost got murdered by a fiery heathen. I also needed a ton of stone for cementing paste, so I went to tame an Alpha Dode, and on the way this happened. It's a good thing I have almost 1,000 health. And hearing that sound, I feared I would get sent to the Shadow Realm when I finally hit the bottom. Well, luckily, those degenerates were nowhere to be seen. Once I arrived, I read the Dode the finest of bedtime stories and made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Slavery. I mean friendship. I made her a saddle and put her to work. I was about to put all the stone away, but I heard boss music, and then I saw this.
Oh shit, not good.
Yeah, an Origin RG has spawned near and started one-shotting everything. There wasn't really much I could do, so quick thinking I put everything I could in Pokeballs. And unfortunately, one of my Featherlights decided to try to solo it, And thankfully, I got almost everything in soul traps besides the ones that were inside. I managed to get a few steps ahead of the RG and threw out the Chaos Rex and the Spirit Spino and showed that RG who the real boss was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. You're fucking right. You made a mistake, you little bitch.
Stupid overgrown turkey. Not gonna lie, I was in shock about what just happened, so I flew around for a minute looking for maybe a lost featherlight, but there was nothing. So I kind of just took my L and would be back to it the next day. Logging back in, I threw out the fabled RGs again to collect their eggs, and then went to craft the demonic kibble and realized I needed some omega eggs, which at the moment I don't have access to because reasons. Anyway, I crafted an omega kibble, collected an egg, harvested 3 tons of rare flowers, murdered a toxic berry for its blood, got some strange mushrooms from Professor Elm,
Hey, kid. Would you like some drugs?
and turned them into the most toxic narcotics, and made some primal and origin narcotics from those. I laced some primal arrows with origin drugs, and then while flying around gathering resources, I spotted this low-level female Omega Rex. I needed Omega eggs, so this is perfect. So after stuffing its face with melatonin, I tamed her, so I could turn her unborn children into dino kibble. And once she laid a couple eggs, I was able to craft the 2 demonic kibble I needed for the Reaper Empress. Yes, I know I was saying queen earlier, and I'm sorry. So with the kibble in hand, I set out to tame her. Once I found her taking swimming lessons, I read her the greatest bedtime story of all time. So how these origin trank arrows work is anything hit by them will pass out in 30 seconds, but in that time they have double the health and melee, but if they can't reach me, it's fair game. Oh, it also drains their food. Anywho, she was KO'd a few seconds later, and she ate both of those kibbles in one bite. And I gotta say, damage-wise, she just felt like a regular demonic. She didn't really seem special, other than this. I then needed some celestial souls, so I obliterated the Spino. I also had to kill all of the origin bosses again for the Celestial Indominus fight, so I sat here and grabbed artifacts for a little bit, and with all 7 artifacts in hand, I was able to craft each of the summoners and prepared to take them all down yet again. Now I don't need to show you all the fights, so I'll just give you clips of them all dying. Yeah, there was a slight mishap with the wyvern. It killed my featherlight and me. And after a game crash, I finally crafted another Chaos Orb, tamed another Chaos Rex, lost yet another featherlight to the Origin Rex because I forgot to put it in a Pokeball. With no flight home, I fought this Megalodon to the death and lost. And when I respawned, I crafted the Celestial Indom Summoner. And going through the boss tiers, I realized there's no way I'm beating all of these by day 100, so I just set myself the goal of beating one of the tier 4 bosses. I wanted a bit more of an open arena for the Indom fight, so I set up in the plains, and in the morning of day 90, I summoned it. Now the beginning of this fight went terribly. They were doing very good damage very quickly. However, I got way too close, and well, yep. I eventually made it back and realized that they were all almost dead. Nothing health potions can't fix. Now I had to look around for the Indom for quite a while and had no idea where this man went, and then I found her. She was just chilling on the beach. So I caught her aggro and moved her across the water, almost perishing in the process. I threw out the freshly healed squad and whistled attack. This time around, I don't know what happened, but I guess everyone hit it with their specials at the same time, and she got deleted almost instantly. And apparently I tried to grab my tames too soon, so I did too. But I got back and everyone seemed fine. I returned home the next day, and I was able to craft the Celestial Kibble for the tameable Indom, so I summoned it above the water, and I know it's cheesing, but I don't feel like dying a bajillion times. So I shot it with an Origin Arrow, and just barely avoided its aimbot attack, and a few seconds later, she took a very hungry nap. So I fed her. Back home, I named her Toretto because...
Family.
Now for the boss, I needed 15 celestial and 15 demonic souls, so that's what I did. And this one got deleted by a manga, so I got the soul anyway because I was nearby. And I killed the firebird also. And that was it. 15 of each. And when I got back home, I really wanted to tame another spirit dino for the healing buff, and it looks like I'm gonna have to wait for one to spawn. I did end up finding a celestial rock drake, which I did need celestial eggs for the spirit orb, so I knocked it out and fed it the other piece of kibble I had, since the endom only needed one. And at that point, I was just waiting for eggs. But eventually got the 2 celestial eggs I needed, so I crafted the spirit orb, and eventually this level 145 spirit dino spawned in, so I forced it to join the army. And I did have to use a few of the souls to craft the spirit orb, but I got them back pretty quick. And after getting a bit more primal blood, I looked back and saw an Origin RG heading right for my Featherlight. Tried to whistle follow, but unfortunately... So I quickly got revenge. So now I would grab the 2 artifacts that I needed to craft the summoner on day 97. I flew back over to the plains and threw out the army with a feeling I was about to lose everything that I worked so hard for. And man, have I never been more right. So here we are, the dawn of day 100. It was time to see what these guys were made of. So I took the Rex and went front line. Gave everyone a quick glance and summoned the Chaos Guardian. And at first, I thought everyone was holding up well. There was lots of damage being done, and the army started to fall. One by one. Everybody was dying. And I was clearly way underprepared. And with the other Chaos Rex dying, I tried to run. I eventually got out of render, and then I tried to go back to see if maybe it had de-aggroed, and it re-aggroed on me. So with no escape, I ran in headfirst, only to succumb to the wrath of the Chaos Guardian. Alright, well, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. As always, I appreciate you watching. And I know that was not challenge complete. We actually failed pretty miserably. Yeah, I was definitely not prepared for that fight. But anyway, I do hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want to see a part 2 to this, I'm going to let this video kind of sit and linger for a couple days before I decide on what to do next. But if you want to see this go to 200 days, where I will actually attempt to beat the whole thing, all that means all the bosses, everything, let me know. Drop a like, and if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, because I'm uploading at least 1 video a month. I'm trying to, but you know, it's real hard to balance this and work. I've been trying my best, and I appreciate you all. Thanks you guys so much for watching. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.